You have probably seen MotoGP riders do this. Or this. And definitely this. But what are they actually doing, and why? Here are 10 things MotoGP racers do to go faster. Number 1. Use their upper body as a parachute to brake harder. When braking hard on any motorcycle going at low speeds, the maximum deceleration possible is about 1 G. This is because the motorcycle wants to tip or pitch forward around the front tire's contact patch. The force keeping the bike down is gravity, which is 1 G. Makes sense, right? And that is how we can do stoppies on our motorcycles. Well, did you know that MotoGP riders can decelerate at 1.8 Gs? So how is this possible? This is because they are using their upper body as a parachute by sitting straight up on the bike when getting on the brakes. This creates an aerodynamic drag force which generates a torque that counteracts the torque trying to pitch the motorcycle forward. Nature and machine in perfect unison. Number 2. Let the bike wobble. Kinda scary, huh? Some riders call this the death wobble. But for MotoGP riders, letting the bike wobble is very important, because the bike is stabilizing itself. You see, our motorcycles always want to go in a straight line primarily because of the trail of the front wheel, as well as the pneumatic trail created by the tires. When the bike wobbles, it's trying to stabilize itself. If you would start wrestling with the bike when it's doing this, it would wobble even more. MotoGP bikes have a very aggressive trail so that the motorcycle turns in fast, but this also makes the bike more prone to wobbling. This is why we have steering dampers, which to a large degree prohibits wobble. Nevertheless, when riding a motorcycle at its absolute limits, it is going to wobble, and the rider must let it do its thing or be prepared to take the consequences. Number 3. Secure their knee against the tank by twisting their outer foot. When hanging off the bike, it is very important that the rider is securely connected to the bike. As we learned in point number 2, we should not be hanging on the handlebars, because this destabilizes the bike. Well, how can we be stable on the bike while hanging off then? By using our legs. To be firmly connected to their bikes, MotoGP riders squeeze their outer knee into the tank. Because of the body position that the rider is in, it is very hard to push hard into the tank by just pulling their knee. But riders have found a way to gain more leverage. By twisting their foot into the bracket on the rear sets, they gain a big amount of leverage and can push their knee firmly into the tank. If you don't believe me, go into your garage, put the bike on a paddock stand and try to hang off. Okay, now try to squeeze your knee into the tank while twisting the foot. You'll go from SpongeBob to the Hulk. Number 4. Drift to turn the bike around quicker. Ever seen the riders drift around the corners? It's really cool, but why are they doing this? Well, first of all, maximum grip for racing slicks is found at small degrees of slip or sliding. So a tire that slips a little bit when trying to accelerate the motorcycle forward will provide more grip than a tire that is not slipping. So this is one reason to drift. Another reason is that it helps to change the trajectory of the motorcycle, altering its line. This way of turning is usually referred to as U to a V, where the rider goes into the corner in a U shape but then tightens up their line by drifting, and thus their line more resembles a V when exiting. This way the rider can trail brake far into the corner but still accelerate out fast. Number 5. Let the bike stand up while staying down. Have you ever seen riders continuing to hang off the bike when the bike is almost straight? Why are they doing this? They are letting the bike stand up while staying down to minimize the lean angle of the motorcycle and get maximum traction out of the corner. As I showed in my video about the science of hanging off only gives a few degrees of lean angle advantage. The amount of degrees that a rider can lessen the motorcycle's lean angle are increased with smaller lean angles. So at 60 degrees of lean angle, a MotoGP rider hanging off really far can lessen their motorcycle's lean angle by about 4 degrees. But at 10 degrees of motorcycle lean angle, the rider can reduce the motorcycle's lean angle by almost 8 degrees. That's huge. That means that the bike can be almost upright. This is why MotoGP riders hang off so far on the exit. Number 6. Foot position, foot position, foot position. Have you ever seen the riders move their feet around? Well, have a look at how much they move their feet around when changing body position. The rider's foot position on the pegs is very important. When moving around on the bike to get maximum pushing power, the rider stands at or around the balls of their feet. The riders also need to move their inside foot when cornering so that their toes do not hit the ground at big lean angles. This is also to be able to move their leg and upper body further to the inside of the corner. The outside foot position when cornering is equally important, to be able to push their knee into the tank, just as we talked about earlier. Some riders move their feet around like they are tap dancing, while you see others not moving them around much. Everyone has their personal styles, but no one ignores their foot position because they know how important it is. Number 7. Short shifting into corners. When we enter a corner on the motorcycle, the RPMs go up, because the circumference of the tire is smaller on the outside of the tires. So the more lean angle we add, the more the RPMs go up. When riding on the street, this is just a cool effect that most riders probably don't even think about. But for a MotoGP rider, this is crucial, because they want to be in the correct gear for accelerating out of the corner with maximum power and traction. So in, for instance, long sweeping corners, MotoGP riders short shift going into the corner. The bike sounds like it's almost about to die, but when the bike is leaned over, the RPMs go back up to just the right spot. Number 8. Using braking forces to move in the saddle. MotoGP riders train as hard as any other pro athlete. Think about it, every time the rider moves around on the bike, they have to push their weight around in various straining body positions. The rider is tap dancing with their feet, dangling their legs, tucking on the straight, hanging off, and resisting massive G-forces when braking. To retain as much energy as possible throughout the races, riders want to minimize how much they have to move around. So a clever trick you see pretty much all MotoGP riders use is to move their lower body with the help of the G-forces generated by braking hard. They start to brake and then just slide in the saddle using the G-forces. Number 9. Stand up to reduce wheelies. Remember we talked about how motorcycles going at low speeds can only decelerate at roughly 1 G, while motorcycles can only accelerate at roughly 1 G for exactly the same reasons. The motorcycle wants to wheelie and gravity cannot keep the front wheel down. This is why the manufacturers started adding wings to their motorcycles. The wings provide downforce, which enables higher acceleration than 1 G. But wings are not enough, so another trick that you see many riders use is that on acceleration they stand on their feet, lifting their butt off the saddle and moving forward. This creates a torque countering the torque trying to make the bike wheelie. Number 10. Leg dangle. Riders do this maneuver when braking for corners. I talked about this in detail over 2 years ago. Since making that video, I started incorporating it into my own riding, and I really like it. When braking really hard on any race bike, and especially a MotoGP bike, as we already know the G-forces on the rider are huge. Not only that, the rider is being pushed around at a crucial moment, just when they are going to initiate the turn. For me, dangling the leg into corners helps me get more leverage to overpower the G-forces, and thus I can use my core strength in a better way, which means I use up less energy when braking. I also feel like I can control the rear wheel slide a lot better, which in turn increases my confidence on the brakes. An actual MotoGP test rider, Sylvain Guintoli, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, did his own YouTube video about why he does it. It turns out our analysis is very similar. Remember to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. There's always something new to learn.
It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Cause baby I feel real good and I wish I would. Watch out now. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out now. I'm ready for a good time.